I'm calling the meeting to order. The Planning Commission special meeting, Thursday, November 20th. Our only agenda item is public hearing on ordinance number 3315, an ordinance amending the City of Guthrie Code of Ordinances under Chapter 4, Building, Plumbing, and Electricity. Article 22, Building Design Standards, 4-423, Residential Appearance Standards, Paragraph K, Outbuildings and Accessory Buildings. This would repeal all conflicting ordinances, providing for severability and declaring an emergency. Okay. Any comments? I think we're going to just start at the beginning of our new ordinance and work our way through and see if there's any. Now, our chairman, Vernon Ogburn, wasn't able to be here tonight, but he did provide some notes that Renee has, and she might be sharing that with us as we go through.
So I can speak for two people.
Right. So, I think we'll have our city manager guide us through this, or do you want us to read it?
I don't think it's necessary to read it. You've had a chance to look at this.
So
it.
If we just want to mention anything,
section by section,
if there's anything that we want to address.
Are a consensus of the entire planning commission, we can mark okay, and though we don't have to come back to those. Things that are questions
I think most of our comments will come from our chairman.
We can discuss and see if we can develop a consensus on how we want the final wording to be. So we could just start on page 1, section, the new section 4-423 K, and in red there's an introductory paragraph. We could just start there and then go forward.
I have a notation here. It gets down to where towards the bottom of that red section, where it says set forth herein and all applicable codes, and it mentions building, plumbing, mechanical, etc. What do you think about also including the design guidelines in there as a list of codes that it's addressing? So you might say something as well as the design guidelines.
Are you talking about the Article 22 building design guidelines and the appearance standards?
Yes.
I think there's a dress somewhere else.
That this is a paragraph inside that. And hopefully that there's not anything in those design guidelines that apply to this that's not in here.
Okay, so we don't need to include that.
Unless there's something specific you need to include.
Okay, I'm crossing that out. That was fast. Moving.
Yeah,
anybody
moving on.
else?
I don't
Okay.
have it. I really don't have it.
Moving on. We didn't have anything in our notes, Vern and I, on either 2 or 3. Page 2 or 3. Anybody else? Okay. On page 4, where there's the chart, great chart by the way, where it said at the top, the heading yard setback requirements, is that really a 7 in there?
That is table 7.7 out of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And so we are amending that table within the existing zoning ordinance, number 2422. So that is a reproduction of that table.
Okay.
The only thing we're amending is the setback for structures accessory to residential.
Right.
And in there, we are not changing the side yard or the rear yard, but the front yard, the minimum setback now is 25 feet. Mm-hmm. So if your house is 25 feet, you can set your accessory building at the same line of sight as the house. Or if your house is set back 50 feet, it could actually even be set in front of it.
That would-
What we're saying
That would
now,
not be good.
Is that the way it is now?
yes, what we're saying in the green
Okay.
is that, if you look at note B, it says all detached accessory buildings in a residential zoning district or on property in any zoning district being used for residential use shall have a minimum front yard setback of being located behind the furthest rear wall of the main residential structure on the property. So wherever you build a house, whatever's the back wall, it would have to be behind it.
Perfect,
Now,
that's.
we have provided some options as we go through this, where you could come to the planning commission and get a special use permit to
Depending on,
certain
yeah,
conditions.
depending on your circumstance.
But as a general rule, without those special conditions being approved by the planning commission and the city council, in the future, all accessory buildings would be behind the furthest back wall of the residence.
Okay, I think that's the key point in this, was keeping it back. That was the only thing that we saw on here. Anybody else?
Mhm.
No.
Okay. On page 5, I had a question on item E, and that kind of goes into the same thing as you look at the bottom of that page, under general provisions. Item E says garage apartments located in the rear yard, blah, 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 and it goes on. And 5 is kind of a parallel item where it talks about residential accessory buildings shall not contain living quarters. The concern is that on E would be something that would be contrary to, under general provisions. And do we want to start throwing out there a discussion on secondary apartments in a residential zone and save that for another time? Or should we just entirely delete item number E, where it talks about the setback in a rear yard for a garage
E,
apartment?
That is cut and paste from the zoning ordinance itself. That footnote already exists. We can amend that one as well. And what we could do is strike apartments and say garage.
Okay,
Garages located in the rear yard.
okay,
But that's out of our current zoning ordinance, that
Yeah.
language
okay,
is where that came from.
okay.
So you're proposing that on E on page 5, we would strike the word apartments,
Yes. That's perfect.
okay?
Okay. We didn't have any problem with the new changes that you've indicated in red on item H. And we've talked about granny flats.
If we could hold up just a minute, we're on
Yes.
page 5. Did you have any notes prior to that we should?
No, I don't
everybody
think so.
could catch? Okay.
Somebody did their homework with all this red, you know.
She did, and he did.
It's a good job.
Yes. Good job.
So are we on to page 6, or are we still on page 5?
I think we're moving right along. Some of these things are minor but whatever. Under number C, on the last line in number C, could we change residential accessory buildings will not be constructed on vacant property? And just delete the are not able.
Which paragraph are we on again?
I'm sorry, number C.
Okay.
So the final sentence in number C would read, residential accessory buildings will not be constructed on vacant property.
Isn't that covered somewhere where you can't build anything
Now,
now? Unless it
Now it
already
is.
has,
now it is, it will be.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't do it now, but it's not as clearly stated as
Okay.
it is here.
Correct.
Residential accessory buildings cannot be constructed on vacant property?
Will not. You can do can or will, either one. Okay.
So residential accessory buildings cannot be constructed on vacant property.
Perfect. That sounds good. Okay, stop me, you guys, if, I'm going on down to G, if there's not any other comments. The last, second to the last sentence in there, it talks about, architectural features, found on principal residential structure. Okay, let me read the whole thing. Architectural features of attached residential accessory building must resemble or be similar to features found on the principal residential structure, including size and dimension. We'd like to change that to shape and dimension.
What do you want to put, size, comma, shape and dimensions, or strike size altogether?
I would like to strike size and replace that word with shape, so we have shape and dimension.
Well, if you did that, then somebody can put any size window they want, as long as they shape it like the other windows. So
Well,
if you were wanting the same size window that you had in a structure, you could come back and shape your window. The same.
well, we've got dimension in there, which was kind of what we were looking at, but I don't have a problem if you want to include that along with shape.
Well, I can see how you could have a different, smaller side.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't want to,
Well, if you have great big windows,
yeah.
if you have a window like this on your house,
Mhm.
you wouldn't want to put that in your accessory building.
Right. Okay, so strike size and put the word shape.
So,
I liked your item I there where you talked about at 5 feet or less, having the walls, if it's adjacent to some other building, making sure that the walls are totally non-combustible.
And I put that in red, the 5 foot, and we need to get input from the fire department and our building guys that if that, because I've seen different distances.
Where did
Get
the-
the recommendation.
This is just curiosity, but like that one that we just read about the windows,
Mhm.
where did this, where did that wording come from? Where did the idea come from? Because I don't remember us discussing that.
On the windows,
Yeah,
the,
I think it's a great idea, but I just.
this is a combination of reviewing about 10 ordinances from other communities.
But it's,
Now,
it's something that we
great.
can
We
discuss
already have,
that is really important.
Yes.
we already have that you must have 2 windows on 2 walls. We already
I
have that.
didn't even know that, of course,
But we
that
did not
obviously
have the, that's a complement.
hasn't really been enforced.
And part of this is it's taking things, some of it is taking things that we may have in our ordinances in 5 different places and putting it all in one place.
Just
Okay.
cleaning things up.
Yeah, the windows thing, the prefab ones that you can buy at Lowe's or Home Depot don't have windows. I mean,
The majority of them.
yeah, I mean, you can add windows.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
I'm going on down. I had a question on number L. Any residential accessory building with an area greater than 120 square feet shall be permanently constructed on a concrete foundation and so on. I think that's great. Are we changing the square footage at which a a full review is not required from 200 to 120?
Correct,
Okay,
10 by 12, basically.
okay, I think that's good, I like that. Okay.
So the ones that are 120 or less, do they require any?
They are supposed to meet the
Notification.
standards, but they do not have to go through a permitting process. And right
Special
now,
use permit, right?
they don't have to get a building permit at all, unless they're put in a location that they don't qualify for.
Yeah.
Right now, it's 200 feet and less. We have not been requiring a building permit.
And then the special use permit would be an additional permit, I remember reading about.
Correct.
In what conditions would they need a special use permit?
The one that we just went past,
I think it's on 7, page 7.
if it's gonna be located in the front of the furthest rear
Yeah,
wall.
right.
And also, if it's attached after the completion of the original residential structure, it would need one as well.
Okay. So if it's in the side yard essentially, or if it's close to the,
Or if you want to put it in your side yard, you
Yeah,
need to
then
ask.
you have to have a special use.
yeah, okay. Because we have the ordinance, which we want to get right, but then there's the education of, for the general public of when and how to contact the city. So they can do their homework before they go out and buy something.
Replace it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ask for
everybody might
forgiveness
have
rather
a
than permission.
different opinion, but, you know, a special use permit is because you don't have a backyard, and you need to put it in the side yard. It's not, I don't wanna put it in my backyard because I don't wanna look at it out of my den windows in the back.
Okay, but nobody else in the
Nobody
neighborhood
else
wants to
wants to look at it
either.
either, so
Or
you're,
put it on the side yard, so you gotta.
right, I wanna put it in the
If you're
side
trying to
yard.
avoid utilities or
You have
something.
an elongated yard
Yes,
that's basically almost like 2 lots,
right,
and you wanna put it out there in the side,
Yeah.
yeah.
that would be applicable.
And there are some areas in town that
Yeah.
absolutely exists, so.
Yeah.
The building official said that it's 5 feet for a 1 hour firewall, and that's out of IBC 2015.
So is that saying what we've got's okay?
Yes, that's saying that meets code.
Okay.
That's what code requires.
Okay, we're down to shipping containers on page 6.
No problems with that, that looks good. Okay. My next comments are way down on number 7, so if anybody's got anything before that. Okay. Vern had a lot, and I concur, under building permit requirements. We were looking at deleting that first sentence under number A so that it begins with a plumbing, mechanical, or electrical permit may be required for any of that kind of work. Okay, and then under the bullet that's under number A, begin with the next sentence that says, a site plan. Wait a second, hold on.
Oh, we're getting old. site plans.
Back up everything where I just said, I'm trying to follow arrows here. Okay, under number 7A, that first sentence that I deleted there, What he wants, and I concur, is to replace that first sentence with, and this is gonna take some discussion, you guys, a building permit is required for all residential accessory buildings. An accessory building under 120 square feet could be granted a no-fee permit if approved. So that's number 7A. And then it begins the next bullet following with a site plan. Now, that may require some discussion, because I know if every person who wants to put up an accessory building comes in and we review what they've sketched out, we're not gonna be requiring architectural drawing on that by any means. That may require more man hours to review that, and that becomes a budget issue, so throwing that out there for.
So that change, if I understand it correctly, you would submit, you would require a building permit, whether there's a fee or not, might be just a different case, but any accessory building, even if it was a 5x5 building, everything would have to have a permit. Would that change?
The only purpose for that, and I understand where you're going with a 5x5, just making sure that they have submitted a site plan, and it can be just sketched out, and, you know, the dimensions just hand-drawn in, so that we make sure it's not put in the front, on a side yard, or next to their driveway, and then that initiates a whole lot of consternation about.
Maybe
So you're talking about where they wouldn't have to go out and look, where they just get a,
draw out their lot on a piece of paper and show where the house is and where they wanna put a 10x12 building.
Right, pretty much like
Yeah.
that.
Well, we talked about that once before, about building permits even for building in the backyard, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
We said something about no fees, but you need to come get a permit to let them know that I'm gonna be putting a structure on this piece of property and here's where it's gonna go. And it might be a Lowe's building, you know?
Yeah. A lot of it is placement and making sure that, you know, that it is put in the right place, or that it's not over.
Well, and then you gotta make sure it's not over utilities.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things to consider even in building a
Yeah, I know, it used to,
Small
I used to just go build that.
but you gotta think about
Were there people that
the
did that?
labor involved, you know,
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
administrative.
Administrative.
So then, if we went this way, every accessory building would require a building permit. Now, you could.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, what's your,
you know, give us some
The,
shit.
of course, with two building inspectors that also do code enforcement on tall grass and dilapidated dangerous structures, plus this, I don't know that the amount of workload that we're gonna put on them if two people's gonna be able to do that. So do we wanna focus on the larger buildings that are more priority, or do we want to try to do all of them? Now, in the historic district, it doesn't matter what size building, you've gotta get a permit.
right.
But outside of the historic district, it only kicks in if it's more than 120 square feet.
And right now, we encourage people, no matter if it's a prefab from Lowe's that's a 10x12 or, you know, whatever, we encourage them to check with the placement of where they're gonna put it, so they can just put it there one time, not have to move it. But we don't have any paperwork that goes along with that or a fee.
Well, I think they ought to have the freedom to do a 10x12 building without having to spend all their time at City Hall trying to figure out if I can put this 10x12 building in my backyard somewhere, you know?
But then, and,
Most of the time, everybody knows where the utilities are at, you know?
you know, with this, we're stepping up our game as far as being thoughtful about materials and color and windows, and so how are they gonna know what those expectations are? How are they gonna know what overlay district they're in and what requirements, what's allowed and what's
It's gonna
not?
have to be on the water bill,
Yeah,
and get something in the newspaper as well, and
website,
Yeah.
social media.
Yeah,
As far as our building
Yeah.
inspectors
City of
go,
Guthrie, Facebook page.
and code
things
enforcement,
like
I'd
that.
rather them focus on the primary residence and the front yard.
My only thought about that is, like, if you just had a piece of paper where, I mean, we gone from 200 to 120, right?
Yeah.
If we're excluding these 120-foot ones, which I think very few of them are that size.
Just be the little metal buildings almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I have.
I've had two recently built behind, one by side of my house. and one
On some level, I think that if you know that you're
probably
putting an
under
accessory,
120.
Yeah,
this is just my thought process. On some level, if you know that you're gonna be putting an accessory building in a yard, and you know that no matter what size it is, you need to go to City Hall, at least the people with the little building could get a copy of where they could place it. You know, there's no fee, you can't put it in your side yard, you know, just to get even if it's just a sheet that says, you know, here's what you need to know, you're not gonna be charged. If you put it in the wrong place, you know, how it could end up hurting them, not having to come to the city, is if they stick it between their house and their neighbor's house, or, and I've seen them in, you know, in front of the front yard,
Yeah,
and then they're gonna have to move it. But I mean, I don't know how work intensive, that would be for code enforcement.
well, and we're also including a carport cover as an accessory building in this definition that we have here.
Right.
So it
I
would,
mean, we can try and see how it works, I mean, but it will generate more permit applications without a doubt. But
Was it
we
an
would
amendment?
need to go back and change it more than just this one location probably, but
Okay.
if we don't want an accessory building to go in without a site plan or, you know, even if you're not requiring a building permit, you could require a site plan.
I guess my question is, like, if they get, you know, if they don't need a permit, and we've limited it to 2, you know, if he's already got his 210-foot buildings, and he knows he doesn't need a permit, and he gets another one, where does that ever get
checked.
checked? Yeah. That makes sense at all?
Yeah, because that's where a lot of the communication issues
Right.
has come up with people not knowing, or it just showing up.
When we bought ours at Lowe's a couple of years ago, Lowe's did some kind of check with the city of Guthrie. I don't know what they were referencing, but there was some process on the vendor's end before they would, you know, erect the building to check the local ordinances. So I don't know if there's something we publish or if they contact us or what.
And I can see how Lowe's would need to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So there may be some other mechanisms like
yeah,
that.
a lot of their buildings are 12 by 24, you know, their buildings are 12 by 20, 12 by 24, 14 by,
Well, maybe
Which-
they don't want to build something without getting.
which moving them in, you need some room on a larger lot to even move them in to begin with.
I don't have strong feelings about this, one way or the other.
I mean, it wouldn't bother me if you didn't require a permit for a 120 square foot building.
I can see it as a necessity in the historic district, you know, to make sure that things
Yeah, you
aren't
kind of
sliding
take care of
in.
that anyway. you know.
Yes, but I'm kind of neutral outside of that.
You know.
well, if we can develop some way where the general public is aware that anything under 120 still needs to be in the back, including a carport, you know, that would work. Because I know carports and accessory buildings has always been a big bugaboo. And maybe it's something as simple that there's a little note that gets handed out to people when they come by, or maybe every spring when people want to put something up, you know, that's when
I know
something
what
goes in
I'd
the
do to my
paper.
neighbor if I caught him building a 10 by 20 foot building outside of his house or out in front of his yard. I'd be able to say, hey, you ain't gonna do that.
What's the pleasure of the group?
Well, that's why, I just wanted to throw it out for discussion.
I mean, personally, I wouldn't wanna come up here and get a 120 square foot permit, you know?
Well, and part of the way part of the way I look at it too, it seems like we've gone from 200 to 120.
Yeah.
So that's already a
That's a help.
compromise in that direction.
And most
Yeah,
people
that's
that
gonna
build
trigger
now,
a few
most
more
people that
reviews
build
that's
don't
true.
really want a 10 by 12 building. So if you go
And I don't
200
wanna-
square
and
foot,
I don't
then
wanna-
they're required to come.
Yeah, it'll hold a lot
And a lot
more.
of them are 12 by 24 buildings or 12 by 20 or something, so they'd be required to come get them a permit.
Okay, that sounds good.
I think it'd be pretty good.
I have no problem with it staying at the 110.
Sounds good.
120?
120.
120?
Okay, so for right now, we're not gonna require a permit if it's 120 square feet or less.
Correct.
Yes.
Keep life simple. Okay, I like your drawing, the site plan on the next page. Can we have a north arrow included as a requirement on that drawing? And maybe have people put a street name on the front of that drawing for accessory buildings over 120.
I think those are good
Yeah,
suggestions.
maybe show the alley too.
Or is there any, and like I said, I read this on my phone, so forgive me for not having notes. But are there any special requirements for corner lots and storage buildings?
Yes.
We do have a section.
So that because basically they've got, you know, I guess they would have what would be considered two rear,
Two front yards.
yeah, but two rear ones.
Two,
If you have to build behind the rear wall, the wall that faces the street, it would have to be behind that, and it would have to be behind the rear back of the house too, so it doesn't stick out further than the house. And is that addressed in here?
On
somewhere?
side yards, on page 4,
On C4?
page 4.
What did you say again? I'm sorry.
Page 4.
Page 4.
Side yard.
In the chart.
We're not changing the side yard requirement right now if it's either a 15 or 20 foot side yard setback if it's an exterior lot. And then if you look at footnote D, the setback from the adjacent street shall be 15 in case such lot is back to back with another corner lot and 20 feet in every other case. That's our standard now.
Okay.
Well, are you saying you want the side yard to be the same as a front yard if they're on a corner?
Yeah. Is that what it said?
I don't think so.
Well, that would be an exterior lot. So
Right.
it would either triple or quadruple an interior lot side yard. So you would have that buffering.
And it's the same as a house. If you look up above on residential structures, it's either 15 or 20 is your side yard and an exterior lot or corner lot. So, I mean, it would match
I
your
guess my,
house.
you know, and without drawing it, I just want to make sure that when a house is on,
Yeah, draw it.
when a house is on a corner like this,
Oh, okay.
okay?
Which is called an exterior lot.
Yeah, and then, then there's a house behind it, usually, that faces this street, right? This is the street over here. If they're gonna put an accessory building, it's gotta be behind this wall, but they should, even if their house is further back from what do they call it, city?
The front
setback.
elevation.
The setback. If their house is further back than the setback has to be, they shouldn't be able to put their accessory building here
I think you already addressed that.
so that these houses, there's all kinds of examples of this around Guthrie.
Yeah.
Where there's a corner house that faces, one direction, and then you go around the corner and all the houses are facing the street. You don't want an accessory building in front of the front line, right?
Yeah, it says, you're right, but it says in here
It's
that
addressed
it
in
has
some-
to be
yeah.
behind the furthest back wall.
So this house has 2 back walls. Right, because it has to be back behind
Depend
it.
on the.
Yeah, where's the front
the
door on
elevation
this?
of the-
Well, the front door can be right here.
Okay, so then it would have to be behind this, which it is,
Yeah,
and if this is the corner here,
right,
then I would think that if you've got a 25-foot setback here from the road, and there's a road here, there should be a 25
Same
setback
setback.
here as well. So it's gotta be back
I
there.
think what he's addressing though is if this house is sitting 40 feet off.
yeah, if it's 40 feet off, they shouldn't be able to build this one at 25.
Yeah,
But if they're
totally
gonna-
agree.
If they're gonna build in that size,
Yeah.
they're gonna get a building permit anyway.
Because then you've
Yeah.
got a whole block with the most prominent structure on the street,
Right.
an accessory building.
Right,
There.
There's a few of them around town like that.
yeah. That's correct.
Well,
You
for-
bring up a good point.
Right.
For an example, the fire station on the west side, right down the street from you. It's a house now, but they have a house, and then they built the garage. It's not behind it, it's behind it, but to the left of it, and that's the only building that you can see when you look down that street. I don't know how you address that.
Well, and then on the corner lots, you get into, I guess, just the different, they could be angled on the corner lot. And trying to define where that is.
That's a good point.
Maybe we need an extra letter to identify or be specific on corner lots.
How about just in line with
Well, I don't know.
adjacent
how it is
buildings
now,
or
but
similar buildings?
If you did something, it looks to me like, even if you
It just
change
needs
the
to be
ordinance,
behind the,
it just have to be behind, 5 foot behind this and.
needs to be in the
and 5 foot
backyard.
behind this, because that house is facing
Yeah,
that
if it's
street.
behind the fence,
So he'd have to be behind here and behind here.
Right.
Well, the structure, if it's a corner lot, has 2 front yards. They have a 25-foot
Basically,
setback.
yeah.
And you
you're not
don't,
supposed to have a fence
And
in
you-
the front,
and you-
in the front.
and you don't want
Right.
an accessory building to be in one of the front yards.
Yeah.
And how you word that, I don't know, but I've seen that happen before, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I'm trying to think of how to phrase that to where it covers all.
Corners.
I was gonna say a multitude of sins.
Yeah, cause you've
Corner
seen
lot.
some houses sitting in these corners that are actually built like this, and then their yard goes
If
back
their
here.
fence is placed
No.
properly, then
And
wouldn't you
actually,
just
I
add it
can-
behind the fence, wouldn't that?
I can remember several years ago,
Right.
there was a,
If they have a fence.
Right.
they had a long ranch house like this, and big lots, this is out south of town. And they wanted to put an accessory building, they had a pool. And they wanted to put the accessory building here. Right, and this is the corner, and there was a house, there's a house here. So the view from their front yard was gonna be this accessory building. People across the
Yeah.
street, the building needed to be more like this, right?
Yeah.
Corner lots are, they're
Did they have a fence or no? have to have a fence.
They did have a fence.
So we're gonna have to figure out a way to word it where they have a double front yard.
Yeah, and in
one
fact, I
front
think that I
yard,
have seen
it
wording
is.
before, and,
It has to be behind the house on the one front yard, and then on the other front yard, it can't be any closer than 25 feet. It
But
keeps it behind the house on this street and 25 feet in on the other frontage.
well, but then, once again,
You're saying
the
if the house
problem
is
that you're
set
gonna
back
run
more than
into, if the
20
house on the side is set back 30 feet, then that building's gonna be, if you,
But how do you, if I got a neighbor that decides to do more than the minimum required, he's only required to be 25 feet in and he sets his
Yeah.
30 feet. I mean, what if he decides to set his 40 feet?
Yeah, that's what we're talking
Then
about
is he
here.
setting,
Bring it-
then is he setting a standard for me because he's setting his further back than what's required?
you know, but if you, to me, if you said that corner lots have two front
Front yards.
building lines, that's
And
where you
if the
start.
setback is
And
25
an
feet.
accessory building has to be back behind behind both of those,
Which is 25 feet.
No, cause it's 40 feet
Depending.
deep. I mean, the house is set back 40 feet.
But it doesn't have to be.
But it doesn't have
It
to be.
doesn't have to be, no.
no, but the house is already there, right? I'm talking about the
Yeah.
house,
Existing.
the
Yeah.
house existing, just like the fire station. You know, if we had a rule then, you know, the fire station garage would be behind the fire station, not beside it. Well, in fact, from your house, if you walk out in your front yard and you look down the street to the fire station, you don't see the fire station as much as you see the garage, correct?
I've never paid any attention.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I still look at the fire station now.
Well, but the fire
But I-
station is a cool building
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that
You look
catches
at
my
the
eye.
building when you go by, not the accessory building, right?
Of course, that, and I don't know that even meets the minimum setback because it's built over the sidewalk line.
Yeah, I understand what you're doing, and maybe it's a matter of coming into something that's comparable to surrounding
And I can let it go.
Well, I mean,
structures.
you can control it, you can control the
That's easier.
25% setback if it's all
It's easier
new.
to let it go, but it's
Well,
just,
but even
No, but
if
you
it's
bring up
new,
one-
if I decide to set mine 40 feet
Right.
back and the maximum's 25, or the minimum's 25, and I set back 40, I mean, I'm setting my house further back than required. So does that don't dictate to my neighbor that his accessory building, cause if
no,
you
but
look at it
it
this
should
way,
dictate that where your accessory building goes, not where his does, right?
Yeah.
Saying, looking
But
at the
like-
street.
Yeah, if he's 40 feet back.
here's a
you're
corner
40
lot.
Right,
And say the other's an alley, and here's another corner lot. So, you gotta be back 25 feet. Both ways. So say.
but
this
what you have
is
to
a
understand, a lot of time, there's no alley. There's a
Sure.
house right here, yeah,
Either way,
yeah.
the alley or lot line. So, then you're saying this one's back 40 feet off the road, off this road?
Could be.
Oh, if you're talking,
Okay, so you've got two corners there.
So 25 feet for the corner lot,
Say that's
setback
the house.
on the double front.
Right.
This is the lot. Okay, this lot, this guy could either face this street or this street.
right, doesn't matter which, and he's
Okay.
back 40 feet,
So you got 25 feet,
right?
25 feet, you're saying if he comes down here and he's got 40 feet,
Yeah,
but he's only required 25.
right.
Are you saying this guy's building has to be?
No, this,
So
then
his
it's
could
this
sit here.
guy.
then what you're saying then is
He
if
could
his
build
house,
he could build a building 25 foot off that.
he's gonna be behind this if this is the front.
Right.
You're saying that he can't come out this way.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Because then for the streetscape, you don't have a house there, you've got an accessory building.
Well, of course,
basically.
coming from this way, it's gonna be blocked, cause you got a house here and a house here, and the shed's gonna be here. You'll see it coming this direction, but not this direction. So I'm not sure how you word that.
Yeah, cause depending on which street you're looking at, it's either the backyard or a side yard. You can't get away from either one of those, so.
I understand your question, I'm just
Yeah.
not sure. I'll have to give that one some thought, Joe.
You what?
I'll have to give that one some thought.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I built a new house now and it was 40 feet back, but I'd want to put an accessory building 25 foot back.
Well, you would think not,
Right.
but
Yeah, but.
that's the problem, is
Yeah.
not everybody
some-
thinks like that.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Okay, let me give that some thought. We may have to have a drawing lesson, and
A what?
drawing lesson where we draw it out and talk about it.
Okay, so we're on page,
Because if, going back to the site plan idea, if we're thinking along those lines, then you might have to do a site plan that includes the surrounding properties to see how it fits in with the other structures.
well, see, I don't think you let the neighbors, it's only in relationship to your home. It's not the relationship to other people. You know, if you're on a corner lot and you're 40 feet back, you shouldn't, from the street, you shouldn't be able to put your accessory building at 25. It needs to be behind your house. I guess is what I'm saying. Where are we at? Moving on.
Page 10.
Page 9.
We were on 8.
Was there anything else on the site plan? I had North Arrow, street name and alleyway identified.
What was it, say it again?
North Arrow, street
Oh, yeah,
name and alleyway, if there is one.
What we might want to do is put a sample in for an interior lot and another sample for a corner lot.
Yeah, I can see that being helpful.
Because those would be two different drawings. Okay. Did we get all the other things that you all wanted added? Okay. So we're down to renderings on page 8.
Where are we at?
Page 8, right below the drawing where it says
Okay.
renderings.
And are rendering something that a contractor could provide along with the site plan?
Yes. Just needs to be detailed enough that we can interpret. Some people
It doesn't need to be done by an engineer or an architect.
not as long as you can clearly communicate it. Now, some people, they'll come in with a drawing that's not to scale, and it's like a third grader drew it on a
Yeah.
piece of paper. I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
insulting anybody, but they,
Yeah, it needs
they'll
to be
put much
professionally
time and
done.
effort into it. It needs to be to scale.
This guy.
Yeah.
I found a drawing just on Google and it kind of shades, it's got the corner lot and it kind of shades those two front yard setbacks and then shows an appropriate and an inappropriate place to put the accessory. Just, I'm
That's helpful.
wanting to see what
Yeah.
was out there.
That
Yeah.
sounds good.
Sometimes the picture does more than
Yeah.
just the words.
And one thing I added to this one, in addition to being 120 feet or smaller, it can't be more than 10 foot tall or it requires a permit. It has to be both 120 square feet and floor space or smaller, plus it can't be more than 10 foot tall.
That's what I'm talking about,
I think,
right
so,
there.
last meeting, I think the number we were throwing around was 20 feet, which is pretty high, which is pretty tall. But like, for example, my building, it's a 10 by 12 with a loft, so it's taller than 10 feet.
And we say that you can go up to 15 feet. This is not requiring a permit.
Okay. Right. So you would still need to get a permit.
Correct,
Yeah.
if it's more than 10 foot.
Based on the height.
A permit would allow you to go to 15.
Yeah.
But without a permit, you could go to 10,
Okay.
if it's 120
Yeah.
square feet or
Yeah.
less.
Yeah.
Do you know how tall your building is, Chris, with the loft?
I think it's somewhere between 12 and 15
Yeah, I
feet.
think they're about 12. I've got one of my lot in, and I think it's about 12 feet.
Yeah.
I've seen more of the loft ones just at Lowe's
But
and
most
Home
of the time, your
Depot.
loft one,
Yeah.
if you're
maybe
6'2",
12
most of the time where your loft's at, you don't have enough room to walk under that
Yeah.
loft part.
Ouch.
Yeah, so, and then you're kind of gable up,
Yeah.
an archway, so I think it's about 12 foot.
And we're not married to any of these measurements. I
I'm
mean,
just thinking, if you're trying to make it easy for the folks that are just gonna go to Lowe's, you know. And then again, the education piece of them knowing what to look for.
Yeah, 'cause I doubt if anything they got down there is over 12 foot to the ceiling, no more than 14, because they haul them out on a small trailer. They never have an over height permit to haul them with.
And this is another example of a special use permit, being able to get a taller roof.
And then we allow on page 9, if it's less than 120 square feet, 120 square feet or less, it can be metal sided if it meets the conditions other than in the historic district. And where no metal is allowed.
Item B. Is that where I'm looking? No, yeah, C, sorry.
Yes. Now, in the overlay districts that I'm calling Midtown and the corridors, if I remember correctly, and we'll get to that, if they're bigger than 120 square feet, they cannot be metal. But if they're 120 and smaller, they can be metal
Yeah.
sided.
I have no problem with that.
And then 8 on that same page is where we have the 15-foot
Okay.
Yeah.
or less than the principal building. Can't be taller than your house, or 15 feet, whichever's
Yeah.
least.
Not without a special use permit.
Correct.
So the areas where
That would be
metal,
the other item you could get a special use permit for.
the areas where metal buildings will be allowed would be smaller than 120 square feet or,
Well, there's
In the
there's
lo-
other
yeah,
parts of
there's-
town too. These,
yeah, right.
that's just in the overlay district.
And the historic overlay district, metal buildings aren't allowed at all.
Period.
In the
Overlay district.
other two
any-
overlay district, the one I'm calling Midtown, and the corridor overlay districts along Noble and Division, if it's 120 feet or less, it can be metal. If it's bigger, it cannot be.
Okay,
Outside of those corridors, they can all be metal.
okay.
No
There's
matter
also
what.
And-
this
and-
temple, right?
Yeah, we consolidated the Temple District and North Guthrie and called that
Oh,
Midtown.
They may not be contiguous, but we're calling them one thing.
Okay, but
Just to
it's, yeah, that
simplify
makes
a
sense.
little
That-
bit, and then 1,000 feet on each side of the center line for Noble and Division from city limit to city limit boundary, so all the way down.
Okay.
So out by the lake, you
Yeah.
could have a big, you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
have, it could be bigger than 120 square feet and be metal.
Yeah. And that's what people are gonna
Yeah.
be thinking about with this new ordinance is, that's the biggest change is now there are conditions where you can have metal buildings.
Correct,
Yeah.
as long as it meets the condition on gauge and
Yeah,
seam
yeah.
and corner and all that.
Yeah.
On, I think I'm still on, or going to number 9 on roof type, or am I moving ahead, I'm sorry.
I think that's where we're at now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what we had here. I had some confusion under the part where it starts carports located in front of the farthest rear wall. Didn't want that to get confused with, people saying, oh, I can have it up close, without going to get a special use permit. So, what I'm looking at is having that section, deleting the area where it says building code official, deleting everything ahead of that, and insert planning commission may approve a special use permit for a flat roofed carport in front of the farthest rear wall of the main structure, when a flat roof would allow the carport to blend in better with the streetscape.
Read that again.
Okay. This is the paragraph that begins with carports located in front.
On page 10.
Yes, on page 10. So delete everything from carports located in front to building code official. Delete that. That paragraph would then start with, Planning Commission may approve a special use permit for a flat roof carport in front of the farthest rear wall of the main structure when, and then going back up to that paragraph, when the flat roof would allow the carport to blend in better with the surrounding neighborhood streetscape.
How do you, what about when, if someone builds a carport that, look, I have a neighbor behind me, they added a carport onto their house and it just looks like it's part of the house.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, it wouldn't, what would that be considered?
Attached.
A portico?
Is it attached to the house?
Yeah, it looks
Yeah.
like it's just part of the house. It
Yeah.
even has, shingled roofs and big cedar beams and it's got brick. It's almost like they did an addition to their home.
So
But it's a carport.
so they did it after the home was constructed.
Oh yeah, the house has been there for 40 years and they just built the carport.
Right now, they would have to get permission from the building code official to put a flat roof on it. Because we want to see, it's allowed, but it's upon review by the building code official that it blends in with the house.
Okay.
Well, and what they have done blends in with the house.
Real well.
Well, it looks like,
But if
it
you-
looks like it was there originally.
So
Is it
my
on the
thoughts
side?
was, if you.
On the
Yeah, it's a
side?
ranch style house with a pitched
You
roof.
would have a pitch
And they just
roof.
continue the pitch roof down at the end of the house, right? With cedar beams, and they just pull up underneath it. So it looks like it's been there as long as the house has been there.
Well, a lot of those complement the house anyway, when they build them that way,
Right.
even after the fact.
I think we need to have a little discussion about those places
Of
where
course, those are,
a carport the people are coming in for a carport to be added, but the only place where they can do it is in front of you know, to the side of the house, but in front of the farthest back wall. Cause right now in the accessory
Without a
building,
special-
If their driveway is not in the alley, but in the,
right, cause right now accessory buildings and carports are considered the same thing.
Of course, and this isn't, I guess there's the name of an accessory building.
It would be.
It's like a
It-
remodel.
It would be if it
Yeah, I
was
think-
constructed after the house, even if it's attached.
Oh, so if you add a garage to your house, it becomes an accessory building?
That's the way we defined it, if it's not part of the original construction, if you had a
I
carport
see.
or it's attached, it becomes, we treat it as an accessory building for permitting
Well,
process.
And, you know, that's a unique situation, because honestly, in all, you know, in the past 20 years, I think it's probably the only
Yeah.
person in town who's, I mean, it was probably a $30,000 project,
I
or
was gonna say, that wasn't
40,
a
or,
cheap
you
deal.
know.
Yeah.
So that would be a rare, and you could, if someone came in and wanted to do that, that line in there that said, in the interpretation of the building code official.
Now, you're proposing that that be replaced with planning commission, right?
Yes.
And require.
First, because that would be a
Or to go
special,
to-
yeah. I'm gonna leave all this with Rebecca, so she's got a copy of the notes.
Not only are we adding to the building code, but you all will have more
Yeah.
items as well in the future.
Yeah.
With all these potential.
That's right.
I would have no problem allowing a flat roof carport.
Yeah, the bigger question
If
was
there's
just,
no other, you know, if they don't have an option,
yeah.
or on the
Well,
side.
and that's why they come, you know, for a review. It's
Well,
just,
there's
is
some,
the,
some of them can't even build one unless they build it in front of the garage they've got now.
Right. And see,
yeah,
And then a lot of them are throwing up the metal ones and it don't.
See, this is what we,
Make the house look good
Yeah.
or anything else.
this is what we, you know, here's an example, right? Now, what our compromise is for people that don't have access to their backyard or stuff, see these, the flat roof ones, they
Yeah.
just sort of, they disappear.
Yeah.
less
Now, that's
visually
across the street
obtrusive,
from
yeah.
me.
yeah,
See, they're just sort of not,
Yeah.
There's two right in a row.
It's almost
Yeah.
like it's competing with
you
the
don't
house.
see them. And
yeah,
Yeah.
we want to be able to give people
Yeah.
a place to cover their cars at a really reasonable price that just doesn't affect the streetscape.
Mostly they had the same roof on it.
Yeah,
The ones that look kinda ugly is the one that you, the aluminum that they buy, that you come out and it's got 4 poles on
Yeah.
it, and it's got an arched roof on it, and it's sitting out in front of your
well,
house.
that's one of the worst.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they add metal all the way down the
Looks like
side.
The
Yeah.
sidewalls,
yeah.
Yeah, that's one bad one, and there's some others similar.
There's
to
quite a
that.
few of them around.
That's on your
They're
side.
cheap though.
Do we need to
Yeah, about
have,
$800 for that one.
do
So
we
we
need to,
will tweak that paragraph.
okay.
do we need to have anything about color of the carports? Like if I have a dark brown house and I buy a white metal, it's flat roofed, but I buy a white metal carport, is that okay,
I
or
think
is that
that's covered
asking?
in other areas, isn't it, about, the general conditions?
And it would just be under, cause it's an accessory building, so it
Yeah.
would,
Fall under
I
that
think,
same.
Have
if
to
you look at it, I
complement
think
the,
it's covered under general conditions.
Yeah, the
now in
earth
this
So
tone.
basically what I've done is made 2 books, one with flat and then the other end of the book.
We say all accessory buildings must be earth tone.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that
Or
would be an
com-
accessory
or
building.
comparable.
or complementary, right?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
just what I'm thinking about, if you have something that's just totally,
Like
Stand
hot
out-
pink.
stand outish.
Well,
a
it
lot
seems
of
like
them seem to be white, I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
those
what the
stand out
newer
the
ones
most.
are.
Yeah.
If it's a darker color, I found it really blends
Well,
in.
it,
a lot
yeah,
better.
you don't
Yeah.
see it hardly.
Yeah.
But if you got it, you know, like my neighbors across the street, they've got a white house, the carport's white. Most of the ones, the flat roof ones are white. Now, I've seen some that are brown or, there's an amazing amount of those around town too. You just don't see them.
The brown ones?
Well, no, just the flat,
Oh,
there's
the
a
flat roof
lot
ones.
of,
Lots of them.
They're-
all of
Yeah,
those flat
and the
roof
brown ones
ones.
kind of blend in,
Yeah,
and I've seen some black ones that look kind of classy.
I've just never seen one that was really offensive, because it's flat roof.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keeps the house off the windshield.
Yeah, exactly.
Lets that lady get in a dry car. Cause the garage is full.
That's it.
Okay. Let's see,
But, you know, I mean, if someone's got a drive, I mean, typically, someone's got a driveway, and they're in a little house, they've got no garage, they're gonna wanna put the flat roof carport
In front.
where their driveway is.
Sure.
And to me, why that needs to come to planning, I don't know. I mean, can't we just say if it's flat roof and it's a sealed surface, we can put it in?
I think what we're trying to do is just to, is it automatically approved or not? And some of the ones, you can't, it's hard to write everything with all exceptions in mind. Okay, so if there was a situation, I'm trying to find, where's that one with the,
I should have given those to the camera guy.
yeah,
So,
okay, so we have something like that, where it's positioned forward. Are you saying he could just go ahead and make that, install a flat
Well,
roof
it'd
for
be
that
built
Flat
location?
roof.
Building,
Yeah.
you're saying
But
building
see,
code.
if that was just a flat roof like the other ones and it didn't have the sidewall, I mean, they can't have walls.
You wouldn't pay that much attention to it at all if it were flat roofed with no walls.
You wouldn't see it. I would say that you just let them,
There's a
do it.
picture of the one, I don't see it right now, where it's a little house, and then, like you talked about, the aluminum with the 4 posts, and it's just sitting there, not attached to
This
anything,
one.
not, yeah. So you're saying if
Yeah, but-
that was just a flat roof, that would be okay?
yeah, but see, look, in fact, that one, I have a picture of that one. There's a flat roof one right next door to it. Here. That one that's detached is this one right here. See it?
Okay,
There's a flat roof one next door to it, you
Uh-huh.
can't see it. And it's not attached either, but it's just, it disappears. But that's the same one, I mean, that's right next to that one.
okay.
may I see that one?
Yeah.
But that would be a situation where it's
I'm
forward.
gonna show you what she was
Well,
saying.
what if you had it to where, if you were gonna put a single or
What she was
double
saying, say, that you would
carport
just allow that to go in.
like that in front of your house,
Right, well, see
if
back
you still
here,
had to
that's
have a
it.
permit with no
See
fees,
the flat
just so
roof
you
one?
know what they've got, what they're putting up.
Didn't you say we don't issue
See,
permits for carport?
it's not even there.
You will.
No,
We
it's
should,
not
Neil.
built down
We
there.
don't
We've
charge
galvanized
them.
like
No, but it's.
Oh, you
yeah,
don't
it's
charge them
just
now
flat
for
roof.
it, they still need to apply.
Yeah, it's
That would
more
be-
of a setback check,
Okay.
making
I
sure
agree.
that they're,
I would just say, you know, if
Within
it's a
the
flat
right
roof and they don't,
Okay,
and the city decides that they
we
can't
can't
put it
okay it.
in the backyard, that doesn't have an
Structural
alley.
basis,
Yeah, those
right,
people
because
don't.
of- they're
They
not
could just put up a flat
wind
roof one.
rated and all that. Okay.
Mhm.
So there's
And
gonna
that's-
be a
I
review
mean,
regardless,
I don't
right?
want every carport request to come to
For
us.
that, no, there wouldn't be.
Not on a flat roof.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
But there has to be some consultation based on this language, the building code official, with the building code official, right?
well, it sounds like they have to come now anyway,
Yeah.
for a carport.
They're supposed to come and
To,
check.
to the city staff,
Yeah.
not to you.
Yeah, I don't know
And they
that
don't
we
have
need
to have
that.
a permit.
Well, see, that's what we're talking about here is,
I'll just let them do the flat roof.
I'd rather not have them come and.
If they
argue
come to
with
the
planning
city, so
commission.
what would be the advantage of them coming to us instead of just city staff on that issue?
Yeah. It's pretty much the way it is
Great.
now.
The approval outside of asking for something, some kind of special
Most all this is gonna be in your old
circumstance.
residential areas anyway.
placement or a roof pitch or height of the carport, something outside the norm.
Yeah, if it's
Yeah,
something outside
yeah,
the norm,
we
it
can
would
handle
come
it.
to us, but if it's a flat
Especially-
roof and we've decided
It's
that
10
we'll
foot or
let them
less.
have those,
Mhm.
then it could just be approved. But if they still want to try to put up their, metal
So anything
pitch
not-
thing, I mean, they can bring that to us
Anything not
too.
flat,
Turn it down.
Yeah, like if they want something to park their RV under, that would have to come to planning commission.
Yeah.
Okay, so if a carport has a flat roof, it can be, I'm taking this to the extreme degree. Carport, flat roof, you can put it anywhere, that's kind of what I'm hearing.
Well, most people are gonna put it on their existing driveway,
As long as there's
or
an existing
they're gonna have a
driveway.
third car parking area that they're gonna put it on.
Or
if it's
if they're
existing.
lots wide
Wide
enough,
enough.
they would put it on the side, cause that's probably where the driveway is.
Right.
Right,
So maybe we should add a height limitation. Not only the flat roof, but a height, we don't want it tall enough for an RV to go under.
that's also true.
10 foot,
10 foot tall
10
enough?
foot would be pretty nice. That'd get your big pickup under it,
Yeah.
cause most all vehicles are,
I mean,
So if
I'd like
it's-
to be able to just let them do it,
Yeah.
as long as
Yeah.
it's flat roofed and it's not running our streetscape.
And
I mean,
it's
that's
not
something
taller
that's-
than 10 foot.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
something city staff can take care of then, so if you put a height,
Cause we
Yeah.
don't have a
To
height, next thing we'll do,
complement the
we'll have an
house.
RV parked under it.
Yeah,
Where it's not between the street and the house. And what I mean by, what I'm talking about, the flat roof, there's nothing interrupting the line of sight on the flat roof one, you just
yeah,
Okay.
look
yeah, all
through.
you see is this much of,
Yeah, and you don't, in your eye, I mean, you drive the
yeah,
street, you
your
don't
eye
even
doesn't
see it.
recognize it,
Remember, they still have to meet the front yard setback,
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, the 25 feet,
yeah, or get a variance.
yeah. So
Do
it could
those-
be in front
those
of the
don't.
front
No,
elevation.
they should have though.
yeah, well,
25
No, they
feet.
built in before they did.
Well, it depends where they put the house, you're right.
Yeah,
It depends how far they set the house
Of course,
So if
back.
they're putting it in the driveway in front of the
25
existing
foot
garage,
setback.
that, oftentimes that's not gonna be 25 feet.
No, if your house is only set back 25 feet, you can't put a
can't.
porch or something
That's
in
one of my
front of it
favorite
that
Yeah.
that is in
they
that
put it in,
25
they
feet.
put a new driveway in and put it at an angle. It's
So
not
you
even,
have some things already in place.
it's not
It's not
even,
sitting,
it's not sitting straight with the
Yeah.
house.
oh yeah, I
That
see.
25 foot is going
If
to
you keep
prescribe
going,
to most
it'll
of our
be
city lots
in the
are
next
smaller.
block.
right,
Yeah. So the issue we're having with
You want
those
that guy's
is
Strung line, that you know
they're
that,
just
huh?
putting them up.
Yes.
Historically,
Yeah.
historically,
Uh-huh.
yes.
yeah.
You know,
I saw
do-
one over on such and such street, I wanna do
Yeah.
that too.
I know that when Rebecca went to, I can't remember the meeting that you went to, and you showed us the slides, and, how difficult it is to explain to people why preserving, the sort of historic quality of our streets. This is one of those things, because people don't always understand it, but a flat roof carport doesn't, you can drive through Guthrie and it still looks like Guthrie from 50, 60 years
Yeah.
ago. It doesn't change the aesthetic or the historical integrity completely of the neighborhoods.
Yeah.
They're not really historical, but they just don't, they don't draw attention to
It's not an eye
themselves.
catcher at all.
They don't draw attention to themselves. And we want people to have a place to keep their car. But we-
Yeah.
But we don't
And not
want
get
it,
dinged up by.
but we don't want it to impact the neighborhood negatively, or particularly, in a town like Guthrie.
So you,
Now,
Or-
if if they come to city staff to put up a flat roof carport in their
I
front
would
yard
say
down
that
the
they should be
driveway,
able to do it.
is that something that they'll go out and check to see if they meet the setback or not, or they just draw it, or what they do? Like, I'm gonna get a permit to put one in my front yard tying onto my garage, but it's gonna be separated. Then I'm gonna be 15 foot off the right of way of the street.
So we usually can measure off Google Earth
Okay,
if it's recent. And then, they would have to provide dimensions and a drawing or a type of what they're
Sure.
wanting to.
I would just bet though that none of these flat roof carports in town, or any of these
They've never
carports
been
meet the
here.
setback requirement.
no.
I'm not gonna take that back.
Huh?
I'm not gonna take that back.
Okay, just saying.
So we down to, item 10 on page 10?
Yes. Number B, A is good. B, can we insert the word final in front of, final with an F, in front of construction? No plastic, canvas, or vinyl tarps shall be used in the final construction.
Final, like FINAL?
FINAL.
I'm not sure what that adds. I mean, is that saying that can be used in temporary or?
I'm saying like while it's under construction, they might
Under
put a tarp
construction,
over it or something?
that's not a problem, that's why we put final in front of that. It didn't want somebody to have a plastic window or something, because we were looking at that, trying to figure out why would a person have a vinyl tarp used in construction? I think it's understood that if something's under construction and you don't have the roof on, but just the, framing of, say, a garage, yeah, you're gonna put a tarp up so it doesn't get wet. But in final construction, no. I don't
sure
understand.
follow that language. I mean, to me, B's already saying you can't have plastic canvas or vinyl tarps.
Period.
But what if somebody, while they're constructing it, wanted to cover the roof?
Oh, yeah, during
That-
construction.
That's
yeah.
what you're saying, is that you didn't want people to be confused and think that they couldn't use a tarp while it's under construction.
Right.
Since it just
No,
says in the
absolutely,
construction and
during
not
construction.
final construction.
So once it's all done and finished, the construction is complete, you can't have plastic and so on. But during,
See,
sure.
that's the way I read it now, without putting the word final in there,
Oh, okay,
but let me,
Construction being the end result versus the
Right.
process of construction, I guess.
This room has been constructed, but it's not under construction.
Yeah. Let me look at it.
Okay,
I made a note.
it's not,
Mike, so
It's
it
not
can be
something-
used during the construction of it.
yeah, I'm not gonna lose heartburn over that.
Are we allowing, to backtrack, are we allowing carports in the historic district? Or did we
Shouldn't.
talk about that?
Everything in the historic district has to get a permit and it has to be approved by the,
HP,
yeah. So
Which
you
hasn't
can't
always
do
been-
anything historic
which
district.
hasn't always
without
been
a
full
permit.
safe.
And what would that approval be based on? Like what standard or?
Depends on who's on the commission at the time.
The red book.
Maintaining the, historic view shed, and the integrity of the historic district is
Yeah.
what it should be based on.
Yeah.
Is it, you wanna keep the image on the outside of the historic district
Yeah.
to be, complementary of what you would see in construction in that time frame.
Yeah, and I know you use reference materials and photographs and things like that to support your, yeah.
But there's been, over the years, there's been some real mistakes made. I sound like Donald now.
And there is
These
no
past
metal,
commissions have been terrible.
and there is no metal construction in the historic district at all.
Yeah.
So that was just,
I think you
Eliminate-
can have a metal
okay.
roof, but not metal sidewalls. I remember.
Yeah, that dentist office has a metal roof, and it looks nice, actually.
What dentist office?
On,
Out west of town,
no, on
the one out west of town, which
Vivus, or is it
Oh,
Yeah,
the little.
to the south of Harrison?
But we'll get to the
Out
district.
and First
yeah,
Street?
Laura house.
The little, that's a 100-year-old
Been there
building.
forever,
Yeah.
yeah,
The little red brick building?
yeah.
Yeah,
I sold that to her,
yeah, those,
It's a cute building.
yeah.
mhm.
I was making a little apartment out of it, and Laura came along and stayed after me until I sold it for her. I said, okay, I'll let you have it.
Anything else on page 10? The proposed size of the residential accessory buildings come from other ordinances. I just put those in as placeholders for your all's input. The first thing that you have to check if you're going to build an accessory building is the amount of coverage you have on your lot. That's what A is. You go to the zoning ordinance and you can only have a certain percentage of your lot covered with buildings. And that includes your garage, your house, porches, anything that has a roof over it. You count that, and if you, I forget, is it 35%? 30%. Well, if you got more than, you got 30% of your lot covered, nothing else matters. You can't build a accessory building.
So if 30% of your lot is covered by your house, you can't have an accessory building?
Correct.
Wow.
I'm not sure I can on my property. I'm not,
Yeah,
I mean, and that's
Oh, I would
existing
think
ordinance.
so if you have a yard big enough for a building, then you can't have a building,
That could be possible.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you covered everything
Because if you
basically
take
with
the
the roof.
size of my house, my 3-car garage, and the back porch, and then divide that by the size of the lot, I'm pretty close to 30% already.
So
And
if
there's room
70%
back
of your
there.
lot is empty,
Correct.
you know, you can only use it for a yard,
Correct.
yeah.
A lot of people won't like that.
That's existing.
That's existing ordinance.
That's in our current one.
And I think that there's been a lot of people that have ignored that.
I know
You
that.
think?
Yeah,
Yeah, you probably did.
I'm so glad I got
I don't think
grandfathered
there's a
in.
lot of people even realize that.
No.
I didn't realize that.
No.
Well, I didn't either, and I've been on the planning.
Well, I've thought
Well-
about, because a lot of my neighbors are building small sheds, and I thought about building one for additional storage, and then I got to thinking, well, wait a minute, I may not be able to do it. But I'm one that looks.
But you don't have that listed in these new rules that way.
It's a reference on page 11,
Is that the red?
in A. Under item 11
Oh,
on page
okay.
11, A refers back to the zoning ordinance and says that you have to follow that regulation.
Well,
That's
I
an
mean,
existing regulation.
it's like if I lived where you lived on those lots that you're on, and I lived there, I'd want a 12 by 12 or a 12 by 14.
When was that written?
You know,
Oh, when was the zoning ordinance adopted? 20, 30 years ago?
85?
Yeah.
And
So it's
that's
40
gonna
years.
restrict the, well, I guess it doesn't restrict the density or the size of the house.
Well, it does.
It does.
Sure.
Yeah.
You could max out just on your primary structure.
Oh, right,
But
yeah,
it
yeah.
depends what lot size you have. Do you have a 5th acre or do you have 2.5?
yeah, because if you got a
Well, if you've got
If you got a
6,
7,000 square foot lot and you build a 2,500 square foot house, you can't build anything.
yeah, if you've got a 6,000 square foot lot and you build a 2,000 square foot home, you're done.
Yeah.
Or you can go vertical, 2-story.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
It's
It's
the
just-
footprint.
But most houses, if you buy an existing house, you can't go vertical after it's been built.
Right.
It's not built to go vertical. So yeah, it's very limiting, and it'd be interesting to see what strong towns and some of those think of that ordinance. that may be something that needs to be
look at
revisited,
it.
but.
Yeah, I was
but-
just
but-
thinking along those
but-
lines
but-
too.
But that,
But,
in the
you know,
eighties, when these ordinances was adopted, that was the thought process. That may not be the correct thought process today, because, we're trying to get away from urban sprawl, and you have to have these big lots and green spaces, patio
Yeah.
homes with small lots.
Yeah, exactly.
So, that may be something that needs to be revisited, but right now, that is the current
Yeah,
ordinance.
because I'm thinking about developments like in Oklahoma City in the Wheeler District. They're doing a traditional neighborhood development plan, but there's some parts of it where the whole lot is gonna be the house.
Totally
They're gonna have a small courtyard in the back, and
Yes.
that's it. And they
I
say,
was-
they have the public green space that everyone's gonna share, but.
and somebody will try to put,
Yeah,
Dense.
yeah, that's the.
somebody will try to put an accessory building in that patio.
I've never seen an accessory building in patio homes. I've been to a lot of patio
No,
homes.
the lot's too small, you couldn't even.
Oh, we got 5 feet behind their
Yeah.
houses,
Yeah. And I would say a patio home would not meet this
Would
standard.
not- Yeah,
It covers more than 30% of the lot.
Yeah.
And it's really you're protecting the neighbors around, so you're not flooding their properties when you overbuild on yours.
So what do you
Yeah.
suggest?
There's the environmental.
Well, right now, I think we have to go with the ordinance as it's written until we can do some research. And it may
Okay.
be something else that we want to amend at some point after we have a chance to look at it. Do we want to limit it to 30% of your lot size, or do we want to provide more flexibility where you can have more coverage? But everything
And
has.
how far do you wanna go?
Well,
You know?
and that's the question, because then you may be getting in a situation where you will have to reevaluate stormwater. Because if a
Yeah.
subdivision's built with the concept you're gonna have 30% coverage on all the lots, and now you go to 60% coverage, where's all that additional water runoff gonna go?
yeah.
So, it's amazing how complicated it gets real quick, because one thing affects other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Just add more
Unintended
green space in a
consequences.
park.
Yes,
And you have to keep in mind, if everyone was gonna max build on their lot, like for the whole block, what that would do.
Yeah,
and see, when that subdivision was designed, it wasn't designed, the stormwater capacity may have not been designed for that additional hard surface.
I think it's a conservative percentage to protect the neighbors or the surrounding properties.
But I'm not saying we can't go more, I'm just saying we have to give it some thought and think of all of the ramifications of a change.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, if we were to apply this rubric to different lots in town, how many of them would actually even be able to add an accessory building?
A lot fewer than we've seen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, if it's nearly everyone, then what's the point of even having the ordinance?
Well, none of your old neighborhoods back out in here would be able to have a building, because most of them cover at least 30% of the lot size.
well, of course, I mean, in a lot of places in Guthrie, the smaller the lot, the smaller the home.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
know, so,
but like a lot of folks don't have, if their home is old enough, they don't have a garage or a carport or anything for storage or so.
So anyway, that's subject to review, but right now, until we're ready to change it, we need to have the current ordinance.
you review that and let us know.
Okay.
I made a note.
We need more than one city planner, I think. Somehow,
Always did.
city manager.
I second that.
Yes.
I second that emotion.
And then B ties into the table. And if you got 2 accessory buildings, and you got 6,000 square feet, the total of the 2 can't be more than 4 acres, is what our intent is.
Can't be more than what?
480 feet.
480
Oh,
square
okay.
feet. So it's not 480 per building, that's the total of your accessory buildings. And then you also can't be more than 50% of the ground level of your house.
Right.
Does
So
the,
there's 3 limiting factors on size.
does the county assessor tell you the lot size?
Yes, they
Well, see,
tell
I
you
like
the
that.
lot size.
We're gonna come check yours tomorrow, don't worry about it.
Yeah. They tell you the
Be
lot
careful what you
size
divulge.
and the square footage of the house, the garage, and any porch slabs. They're all itemized.
Yeah, I'm gonna go do the math tonight.
Well, a lot of people, when you buy a house, they tell you what square footage size the house is, but that doesn't include your garage normally.
Right.
That's
And
separate.
so you gotta add your garage in for that ordinance. So are we down to overlay districts, or do we want to play with the size allowed?
Well, I just wasn't too upset with this,
Yeah,
the size allowed. This
Well,
isn't
my
ours,
concept is-
this isn't ours, this is sort of a, you've looked at other places,
Correct,
right?
and, you know, we're not saying all of a sudden that we want residential lots to become RV storage lots.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
perfect.
And that can happen easily.
Fine. We played around with those numbers and it seems good.
And there was nothing about the overlay district that I didn't
Yeah.
like.
On page 14, should this be, now that I understand that you've kind of changed the 2 overlays, on 14, after it says insert narrative, and you're referencing the main corridor, should that be the Midtown corridor? Or is that the, because we're under Midtown,
Town. I believe.
or is that, maybe that's correct.
Residential.
Is main quarter Noble?
Yeah,
Noble,
main-
Noble
And
and
division.
division,
And
yeah.
division would be the main corridors. So
And we're
this,
talking about Midtown.
this is saying if it overlaps and it's in more than one district
Mhm.
of the boundaries, it would go to the most, or the more
Restricted,
More
restrictive
restricted.
Okay, okay,
guidelines.
okay.
So like the Midtown district, you're gonna have,
The
parts of
historic
that
district
that
goes into
intersect
it.
the corridor, yeah, and, so there is some overlapping there. And
mhm.
so it's saying, hey, if you find out that you are in 2, you need to go or default to the more restrictive. And Aaron's showing those. On the live map, I
Oh,
have
great.
them all overlapped because they're in layers, but then for the slides, I broke them out so you could clearly see each boundary. But there is some overlapping.
And we need to work on those maps some more too. Hopefully what we can do is when we describe them and do the maps, they don't overlay. Or overlap is what we need to try to refine.
And I think
That's
if
gonna be rough.
if you all were good with the boundaries and had a chance to look at the districts, then we can get some formal maps and legal descriptions worked up, but we wanted to make sure that
No,
there weren't any changes required.
So what we would typically do is the historic district would be the historic district.
Yeah.
And then the corridor district we would do next. And the corridor district, wherever it overlapped with the historic district, we would take that out of the corridor district on the map.
Put it in the historic.
right,
and
it
the
just
historic
runs into
district
it
might
and then
carve out
stops and
part
then
of
starts
that
again on
district.
the other side.
Then the third one, the Midtown ones, we would do the same thing. If they were in the corridor, we would carve them out of that one. So potentially what we wanna get at is they may abut, but we don't want the descriptions overlapping.
Yeah.
But we haven't got to that point of refinement yet.
Is there, I can't remember, is there a difference between the main corridor restrictions and the midtown? Or are they essentially the same?
Currently, there is not, but we would
Well,
like to keep them as
because
separate.
only in the fact that a lot of the corridor is commercial. Right?
And we need to revisit the commercial design standards at some point. This is just residential accessory buildings.
So the historic district is the most restrictive, and then the corridors in the midtown
Are the same,
be the
but
same,
just in
but
case we
less.
ever change them, I'd like to have the boundaries
Yeah.
identified.
Mhm.
See, I think that when you look at the corridor overlay district, even when you get to commercial, probably should be more restrictive than our current.
Which is 60/40.
Right now, you can do 60/40. I'm not sure we want 40% metal facing the street in that corridor. In a lot of towns I work, if you're in that corridor, you cannot have any metal that can be seen by the street, from the street.
Well, isn't that about the way Edmond is now with their metal buildings, it's facing the streets, gotta be all brick.
Yep.
Yeah, even their storage
Yeah.
sheds.
Even, yeah.
Some of
Yep.
the storage places look good.
Yeah, I mean, their storage,
Well, we will continue to refine this, if you'll leave your notes, and we appreciate your patience because there's a lot of things that go into this, and a lot of, you have to make sure that
We
you don't have
appreciate-
any of those unintended.
we appreciate your guys' patience. At least I do.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes.
you guys put in a lot of time on that. It looks great.
We really put in a lot of the heavy lifting. I'm forever indebted.
Well, it's
Probably
easy,
wrote a couple more ordinances than Rebecca has.
Just a couple.
And I've sent this to the city attorney to review as well,
While we still have
How much
them.
longer is he gonna be with us?
till the end of the year, and then he will continue to provide assistance in the transition period as well.
Do we have anything left to discuss? Then I adjourn the meeting.
Wonderful.
Can I do that?